We were founded during the 9/11 relief effort, really when everyone came together in New York City and in other areas in a really critical time of need. And what we do today is to help community and their residents prepare for, respond to, and recover from disasters by training them, supporting them during response, and providing personal protective equipment and other equipment, as well as keep everybody connected during times of non-disaster. I'm going to play a little video for you. Hopefully that will come up.
It was a night shift.
Let me see if
there were no identifiable
I know you
components
can't
left
hear
of
that.
anything that we knew to be a building.
Hold on a second.
Homes were uninhabitable. There was no power.
Can you all hear that?
Unfortunately, there will always be disasters.
I can hear it with no problem. And
yeah,
we have it widescreen now.
Great, thank you.
We know that when crisis occurs, that individuals have an instinct to respond and to help others.
I always wonder, what if I hadn't? What if I hadn't jumped into that mess? I probably would never forgive myself.
After a disaster hits, it's essential to be able to not only rely on first responders. You need other people. You need volunteers to step forward. You need other resources to come in.
World Care Center trains local leaders to emerge as disaster managers, and we train individuals to emerge as safe and effective disaster volunteers.
What goes wrong in most of the disaster risk management initiatives is that they start from the top and they are supposed to go to the bottom. And by the time they reach the bottom, there's virtually nothing left.
A lot of what happened during the earthquake in Haiti, supplies came in, they were hoarded by whomever, they never got to the people.
The World Care Center approach is quite different because it starts from the ground, starting off with the communities and bringing that knowledge and that capacity up.
We found the people who were responsible in the communities. We gave them the supplies.
By focusing on those that are affected by the disaster, we are in essence reducing the harm and suffering that occurs and increasing the resilience of that community.
Hurricane Irene was a terrific storm in our community. World Care Center was kind enough to come and train our group of leaders who then went out and ran crews to do the cleanups.
In any community, there's a lot of people that either don't know who to contact or can't afford to make the necessary repairs to their house. And that's where World Care Center comes in.
Once you have the experience of actually going in and making a difference after a disaster, you're ready to go the next time.
When Superstorm Sandy struck, we were readily equipped and able to take action immediately.
I wish there was an organization like this that had trained me before I went down there.
We could take this information, we could spread it out, maybe make it a little easier for the next group of people that have to go through it.
World Care Center exists to help people that have less. In doing so, they save lives.
Everybody has a part to play in this world, and if you're doing something positive, you're moving in the right direction. What really is left in life if you're not going to help your fellow person?
Everyone has the potential to be a leader. Everyone has the potential to be that go-to guy, that helper, that light in the darkness. Everyone has that potential, and they can actually better fulfill that potential if they're prepared. And that's what World Cares does. They get you ready for anything.
Okay, let me get you back to the presentation. If I can do that appropriately. There we go. Are you back on our training slide?
Looks good to me.
Fantastic, thank you. So as we go through this training about how you yourself can be prepared for flooding and hurricanes and different kinds of crisis, we also will remind you that everybody has it within their power and their inclination to be a ready responder, really ready to help their neighbor and others when crisis happens. So I'm going to move on to the course introduction and our agenda today. We're going to go over about disasters and emergencies, getting ready, the plans that will help you be better prepared, the supplies that you would need in the event of either staying at home or going to a shelter, the emergency and evacuation planning, including where to find your flood zones, community engagement, really mapping out who around you is available to help you when something bad happens. And then we're going to go into about flooding and flooding hazards, how to prepare your home for the impact of flooding and maybe to mitigate some of those effects, and then some closing remarks and some next steps. Please feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions. I keep it fairly conversational. If there starts to get a lot of questions at once, I may say, well, let's get through the chapter, and you might find that the answers are coming, but we can be pretty casual about that. So, you know, there are three types of emergencies. There are everyday emergencies that you will have resources coming to you readily, such as a house fire where the fire department will be there to respond, or the police may be there to respond. And then you move into large scale disasters and storms and events. And that's where there might be a delayed response because first responders might have a lot going on, and you might be one of many calls that are coming in. Often in those types of disasters, we have mutual aid and other communities come in, but specifically on Long Island, if there is a hurricane, everybody's going to be impacted. And that's really when you start to think about catastrophic events where resources are really stretched thin, and you're really going to have to be taking care of yourself and your family members and your neighbors. So just
Lisa, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm sorry. Is there any way that you're able to get my icon out of the bottom right-hand corner? I'm not sure if it's there for everybody else, but it looks like it's there for me at least. Yeah, that's good.
That's better.
So it's back now. Sorry.
Yeah, it's back because I think those are that's how I control the
oh, gotcha. Yeah, okay.
Right.
Understood. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay,
yeah.
No problem. Yeah, that's how I allows me to go back and forth.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No worries. I think it was just blocking some of the text.
Yeah, I'll make sure to scroll so everybody can see the text. So, you know, we talked about an emergency. So an everyday emergency, a house fire, a gas leak, carbon monoxide poisoning, these things, you know, are all things that when they happen one at a time, we're perfectly capable to respond to as emergency services and support you. But when a disaster, like a large scale storm, power outage, block fire occurs, that's really when we have to start pooling our resources, maybe calling mutual aid, and response might be delayed. Then getting into a catastrophic event, really that's when you need to make sure that you as a citizen, especially a citizen on Long Island, you're prepared to go it alone for a bit. Now, you know, previous research has shown that the most critical time after a disaster was within the first 72 hours. And that is because most life-saving happens within 72 hours. But we've really expanded the need for individuals to be self-sufficient be longer than 72 hours, because now response times in such a disaster take a while longer. And we've seen communities go without power and without resources for up to 2 weeks. So that's why it's important to have these plans in place, and if at all possible, to have your supplies in place as well. So one of the first steps that we talk about, which really doesn't cost any money, it's about gathering information and discussing with those that you're going to be talking with and you're going to be helping, how you're going to communicate with each other. And I love the term family. I actually think I started to use the term family well before Verizon did. And so, you know, when I use the term family, I'm not talking about bloodline family. I'm talking about anybody that you really care for and feel responsible for. And that could be a neighbor. It could be a friend. It could be a coworker. So you should first start with an in case of an emergency number. And there are apps on your phone that you can enter your in case of emergency number, and that will come up even if your phone is locked. So that's important. So figure out who you want the police or first responders to contact should you be found unconscious and your cell phone is there. You can also have the old-fashioned in case of emergency card on you, which you can see here, which is a printed card. I suggest doing both because you never know when your phone is going to be running out of batteries. If you're anything like me, by the end of the day, my phone is dead. So having a printed in case of emergency card with all of your information on it and kept in your wallet is the traditional place to keep it. We are going to be looking for that information if we find you unconscious. So this is a good thing to print out, type up, and fill out and keep in your wallet. Another form of communication is your call tree. So if you have a large family, or if you happen to be responsible for a lot of people, it may not be realistic for you to be organizing everything that's going on and also calling everyone. So you might want to delegate, right? So if you are calling everyone, you might call your mom, your work, and your friends. And then you might say, Mom, you're going to call all of these people. Work, you're going to call all of these people. And friends, you're going to call all of these other friends, and make sure that they are okay, or do they need help, or to let them know that you are okay. And rule of thumb is contact. If you make contact, that's important. So it's not just I've made a call and they're not home, or I've made a call and I left a message, or I've sent an email or a text message that has gone unanswered. That's actually not legitimately making contact with people. So if someone hasn't been reached, you want to keep trying until indeed they are contacted. Another important step is to keep all of your important information in one place and to keep it safe. So personal information on all your family members and those in your care, including who their doctors are, what medications they're on, copies of any prescriptions, maybe copies of their license or their password, any information on finances, including your credit cards and bank account information, maybe your neighbor's contact information, family contact information, a copy of that call tree, important telephone numbers and addresses. And don't forget your pets in here. What do your pets need? Veterinarian, any kind of medication. And you can keep these documents or copies of these documents in a Ziploc bag in a safe place where everybody knows where they are so that they can be gotten. And the reason for this is if the electricity goes out, or again, your cell phone goes out and you need to call from somebody else's phone, or if you need to go after a disaster to an assistance center and start pulling up these kinds of records, you'll have everything gathered on hand and ready in one place. And this will make it much easier for you than having to dig through a potentially flood damaged home to get potentially flood damaged documentation. And let's not forget in this list if you have an insurance policy or the name of their insurer, your insurer. So moving on, you want to prepare supplies in case you have to shelter in place, which means staying at home, or go to a shelter. So the first thing we talk about is a go bag. So maybe everybody knows what a go bag is now. And if you want to, say anything, you're more than welcome to chime in. So this is a bag of supplies that you'll prepare ahead of time. And this go bag is really something. I have one at work. I have one in my car. And it's really something that you're gonna prepare so that you can be on your own for 24 hours, right? So it has some small items, like a copy of your keys, maybe 1 to 2 days worth of medications. If it's a work bag, I have a pair of comfortable shoes and a sweatshirt. I have, even though as silly as it sounds, I still have some quarters in case there's a payphone, and now that's gone away, but a copy of my passport and my license and a little bit of cash as well. I happen to also like to put in there a few energy bars in case I get stuck without food for a while. So here's a go bag checklist. I just went over those items. You can see that there's, you can even put in bottled water if you wish, which is a good idea. A small first aid kit, a flashlight and whistle. Remember those medications for you and your family. You could put in a little battery operated radio. Put that call list in your go bag. If you want, you could have a subway map or a map of the area, and any specialty items that you need. Maybe you need glasses, so I would put those in there. And again, your important documents in a waterproof bag. Preparing to shelter in place. So disasters happening, you're told to stay in place. You're going to choose a home in your room that has as few windows and doors as possible. If you're in a flooding situation, I would not recommend that this be your basement. I would recommend this be a room on your first floor. You would turn off your ventilation, your air conditioning, if possible, your heating systems. You don't want anything that's being blown around to enter the home. And you will take your family supply kits, your pet supplies, and your pet with you. If you've been watching the news and they say there's potential for perhaps an airborne toxin, you might want to duct tape and use plastic sheeting to cover your vents. If we're talking about a serious hurricane where there's potential for a lot of wind damage and items being blown around, you could possibly shutter off windows as well. Always listen to your radio and your TV as much as possible. for instructions. And if you're instructed to stay, stay. If you are instructed to evacuate, evacuate. You're not only, if you choose to stay and you're asked to evacuate, you're not putting just yourself at harm and your family at harm, but you're also putting in harm's way the first responders that will have to come and save you if you are told to evacuate and you choose to stay. So this is really all a part about thinking about the community itself as well. So here's a little diagram, a little picture about what should be kept in your supply kit. You might even add some tools there that you might need, some personal sanitation items, definitely medication, infant supplies. You want to put in there non-perishable food, and please do not forget that can opener if you're going to be using canned goods. And you might want to put in there maybe a sleeping bag or two. So really think what the situation may be and how do you keep you and your family comfortable, not only safe, but also as comfortable as you can possibly be. Okay, so you would just, for a family emergency supply list, you would duplicate the amount of supplies that you need for the amount of people in your family. Also think about special needs, whether we're talking about small children, elderly, or pets. And again, we're not sure the extent of the disaster, so maybe you want to put in things to occupy small children, small games, a duplication of their favorite stuffed animals, and a reminder, please don't forget those medications. Here we're not only talking about the items in the larger shelter in place kit, but now we're talking about 1 gallon per water per day for drinking and sanitation. We're adding in garbage bags and ties in case you have to dispose of items, right? So get those heavy duty garbage bags. Here you see the sleeping bags, a whistle so that you can signal for help. Okay. So when you're thinking about emergency and evacuation planning, you want to create your family plan. You want to include small children, because by including them, you're giving them control over what happens in their lives, which makes them feel more comfortable. So you want to have a preset individual and family plan. You want to review that plan and update it should anything change. And you want to practice that plan with your family and again, with your small children, to make sure that everybody is well practiced and knows what to do. We'll go over that in a little bit. You also want to know your zone, right? So know what flood zone you're in, so that when people are speaking about we're evacuating flood zone 1, flood zone 2, you know what flood zone you're in. And here you can see that there's a flood zone for New York City, and then this is the URL to go to for Long Island, and they have a really good site where you can check your flood zones. So it's longisland.com/flood zones. I'll want to write that down. Okay. So when making your plan, you want to identify the exits from each room in your home or your apartment. You want to know if you're in a building where your emergency exits are, but not only where your emergency exits are if you're in a building, but where your emergency exits lead out to. So in my building at work, we have 3 different emergency exits on the floor, and at each one of them leads out to a different area. So when we first started doing drills, it was a little confusing as where we were going to meet up with everyone because people would go in 3 different places and scatter. So have alternative routes. When you're thinking about evacuating the area, think about multiple ways of evacuating: on foot, in a vehicle, public transportation, could be even a boat. Think about where you are going to meet with family and loved ones, right? If you're thinking about a personal plan and it might be your apartment or your house that might need to be evacuated and you simply have to go to a neighbor's house, designate and let everybody know who that neighbor is. If it's outside your immediate neighborhood and the whole neighborhood is impacted, then identify where that location is and how you're going to get there so that everybody knows that is eventually where you will wind up. If you have a vehicle, always keep at least a half a tank of gas in your car. If you know a flood or a storm or a disaster is coming, go and fill up that vehicle. Maybe even get an extra, extra gas so that you don't have to wait in long lines should you need more fuel. Again, become familiar with alternate evacuation routes, not just the ones you're familiar with. Remember to take your emergency supply kit with you if you have to leave. Lock the door behind you. And you also want to plan for your pets, right? You want to know ahead of time if you're going to a shelter, whether that shelter takes pets. And some shelters, most shelters, you need to have those pets in a pet, crate. So maybe a plan for that as well. If time allows, you should call and email all of your contacts and let them know what's happening and where you're going. If you're in an apartment building, you want to call the superintendent and ask them to shut off the water, the gas, the electricity. This is a really simple thing that you can do, but really critical. If you're expecting loved ones to come home and not find you there, leave a note telling others when you left, what day and time you left, and where you are going. So they're not running around looking for you, right? Leave that note there. And prearrange a carpool with your neighbors. Check on that neighbor that you know may need a little bit of help and try to include them in your planning. Okay. So what's in place? Where's your emergency supply kit? Any emergency equipment needed? And what's your emergency meeting place? If you're talking about work, who's your designated fire warden? Who's the second person if that person is not there? And then who do you report to take attendance to make sure that everybody is out of the building? So this isn't just about home, this can also apply to work. So you want to find out when evacuation is necessary, and the fire warden makes it easy to know who to listen to because you're designating that fire warden, right? If you have someone that you work with, or even in a community center that you go to on a regular basis, and they may need assistance getting down the stairs or what have you, you want to establish who's going to assist that individual. And the same thing, plan multiple evacuation routes, have your pre-established plan. Never use an elevator in the middle of a disaster. You don't know if it's going to stop and you're going to get stuck. And if at work, they might have an I'm okay messaging system, and Facebook has that now as well, so you can utilize that. So any questions or comments on any of the planning at this time? I'm gonna see if I can see everybody. I don't know if I can do that. Anybody? I'm looking at your participant list. No, no one? You would have to unmute yourself. Okay. We'll move on to the presentation then. Okay. So moving on to community engagement, it's important to know who's around you. Sometimes when we think about, okay, you know, I know my police, I know my number, I call 911, right? But when we had the blackout in New York City, I don't know if anybody remembers that, there was a blackout and people were stuck in all of our elevators, and there was a blackout, so there were no telephones, people couldn't call, and the manager of the building was saying, well, the fire department, their telephone number is busy, and I said, well, just go there. And he's like, what do you mean just go there? And I said, our fire department is literally around the corner, no more than 50 feet away. Just walk over there. And so, you know, it's important to not only know 911, but to know where your local fire department is, where your local police department. Maybe there are other resources as well, like churches that might have a few food pantry if need be, or food pantries themselves. So also know where your hospitals are, where community centers are, and where other maybe non-traditional resources might be gathering that you might either need or you might help, right? You can get your community activated. You know, if you have a community center that you go to, a senior center, if you live in a community, if you're a teacher, if you're just, you know, a safety-minded person at work, just make sure that you have these plans in place, you know what your resources are, and organize with each other to make this plan, to train together, and don't forget to help your neighbors. I want to focus a little bit on a little bit about flood hazards and what to look out for when we do have flooding and hurricanes. It's really important never to enter rising water. You do not know how high that water is going to rise to. So you don't want to walk in it because you can get swept off your feet, and you do not want to drive in it. Just 2 feet of rushing water can carry away most vehicles, including SUVs. The other thing that happens with rushing water is that it will actually sweep away the foundation underneath roadways. So you might not know this, but you could be riding over a street and especially on Long Island with the sand, the foundation underneath is now being swept out, and there can be a collapse of the roadway. So just do not drive in this, you know, rising water and flood waters. There can be debris in the water, and we always want to assume that water is contaminated. A lot of the sewage systems get overwhelmed, and now you might have sewage in that water. Other hazards might be structural integrity. When you look at a home, you want to look and see and make sure that there's no cracks in the foundation, or that the home hasn't shifted off of the foundation. Are there any compromised pipes, any broken gas lines, that there might be electrical lines that could cause shock or fire hazards? Always want to assume those downed power lines are live. Don't take a chance, don't touch them. Always assume that if an electric outlet has been exposed to floodwaters, that it's going to be damaged and should cause shock. So you can see that you have some damaged appliances, you can see compromised water pipes, and those are the things that you want to look out for. So how do you prepare your home? Well, there are things that you can do that are structural. You know, if you're thinking about that, or thinking about renovation or something like that, You want to look for hurricane-proof doors, right? They have more hinges. They have 3 hinges and they lock with a deadbolt. Your sliding glass doors should be made of tempered glass. You might want to, if you're doing renovation or building or even making some adjustments, raise your appliances off of the ground in the basement, especially if you know that your home has flooded before. You want to raise those appliances up, put them on a platform so that they don't get flooded. One of the things that's important to do is maintain your roof shingles. If 1 or 2 is loose and you get a lot of wind, what happens is this domino effect. It gets up underneath there and then you have a lot of roof damage. If you know that there's a hurricane or possible flooding happening, you want to go in the basement, remove all the items that are important to you from the basement floor, and store them on shelving. Survey the outside of your yard and surroundings for a potential of flying debris and limit that, right? Or eliminate it. So bring grills and furniture, either, in the garage, or try to secure them, secure potted plants, anything that's going to fly around and potentially cause damage. You want to either put them inside or secure them. We don't see a lot of sandbagging, but that's also a way that you can prevent floodwaters from potentially entering in areas that are important to you that might damage or might flood and cause damaging. So you could sandbag certain areas or block certain areas off with plywood if there are a little bit of a gap where floodwaters can come in. Another thing you can do is add a sump pump to the basement. That could at least keep the floodwaters at a low level as they come into the basement. So those are some tips that we've gone over for preparing yourself for any kind of crisis with that in case of emergency card, for preparing your go bag should something happen and you need to leave work or home really quickly, preparing for a shelter in place, preparing for an evacuation, and then also preparing your home to mitigate the consequences of hurricanes and flooding. So I want to tell you that there are some next steps here. Share that ICE card you create with friends and family, create that call tree. Remember to map out an emergency meeting place. You can even conduct a household hazard hunt with the entire family to see what things might be of danger, like those things that can potentially become airborne. There's some great resources online as well. And don't forget about helping your neighbors and your friends and those that may need a little extra care. They might be alone. Take a good view at your own individual readiness, your readiness on your home, and take action there, and maybe even seek opportunities to get involved. I want to let you know that our website, worldcares.org, you can check out all of the free resources that we have available. You can see our phone number there. This is my email if you'd like some more information. And then I want to leave you guys with, before we take questions, this other important website, which is the Disaster Volunteerism Academy. And that is free training available to you 24/7. So there's information on there about how to muck and gut your home safely, which includes eliminating the potential of mold growth, and other important disaster preparedness training and information. So again, my name is Lisa Orloff from World Care Center, and I'm super excited to have been able to present this to you. And I want to know now if you guys have any questions for me. I'm going to try to stop the sharing and pull you all up. So, does anyone have any questions?
I don't have a question, but I do just want to say, I think that I really appreciate, well, I don't think, I know I appreciate your program because like you said, you can never, there are always instances where you might need to be prepared for something, and and any second you could need to grab your bag and go. And I myself don't have a go bag just yet, but I know people man, I really need to get prepared for. I know wildfires on Long Island are very, very common. I remember back in '97, I was very young, but I remember us being this close to evacuating because right on Old Riverhead Road, there was really bad fires. And
and that
yet, but I'm getting
and
there.
that kitty behind you too.
Little guy, yeah, we will be prepared. We
Okay.
will.
Yeah, and the other day we were responding to a mutual aid to a brush fire. So these things do occur. You can't necessarily always know when they're going to happen. We have had a lot of close calls, and then we have had a lot of direct hits. So it's always better safe than sorry, right?
Right.
Well, I just want to ask the participants one more time if anybody has any questions at all. No? Okay. Well, thank you so much. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, could you also put on your website for us?
Sure. You want that in the chat?
Yes, please.
Yes, ma'am. I'm going to do that right now.
Are we gonna get a paper, like information sheet, something like that?
And then
Okay, that's the. Okay.
this one's a little bit long. I apologize. We're trying to go for shorter names. This is completely my fault. This next one, Disaster Volunteerism Academy.org, is where all of the free trainings are, but it's linked on the website. So if you go on the website and you click it, it'll bring you to the Disaster Volunteerism Academy, and there's a lot of free trainings there available to you anytime.
Okay, and we're gonna have all this material?
Yep. And the other thing I wanted to say to everybody is I am happy to come in person to the libraries and to bring materials for you. We also do a household hazard prevention training where we go over, what is carbon monoxide smell like, how to prevent fires, all of these kind of things. So you guys, I'll put my email on the chat as well. I am happy to come in person. I actually prefer it. I miss seeing people face to face. So there's my email. And if you would like for me to come in person and deliver any one of those trainings, I'm happy to do so. It's free of charge. And yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks, everybody, and have a great evening.
Thank you, Lisa. This was a very, very concise and very great meeting. And I definitely will be looking up those flood zones too, because don't know those.
Yes.
In my entire life, and I'm not prepared.
It's a good website. It's a very good website. All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And we really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us.
Of course, anytime. And I mean that.
Thank you very much. Yes, we really appreciate it. Okay. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you for participating.
Bye, everyone.
We'll see you around.